Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Lee. I am a runner who has traveled all over the world, and I love to make videos on fitness, travel, and lifestyle. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, please make sure to hit the subscribe button so that we can be friends. So today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how I plan my trips abroad. So the first thing that you need to know if you're going to plan a trip abroad is you need to decide where you're going to go. So do you have a bucket list trip that you've always wanted to take? Does someone you know recently came back from a trip and they can't stop talking about it and you want to visit that place too? Were you scrolling on Instagram and you might have saw a cool picture that you wanted to see in real life? So really, you need to decide on what is a trip that you're interested in taking. So me personally, a way that I decide on which location I want to travel to, it mostly has something to do with the race. So either someone has done a race that I'm really interested in doing, they did a race review that I was really interested in checking out, I might have seen a picture, or sometimes, to be honest, I get emails about races that they just draw my attention. So you need to decide what draws you, what are you interested in. Do you want a beach vacation? Do you want a city vacation? Once you decide what type of trip you want to take, that will help you narrow down the location. And then once you have a location, you're ready to move on to the next step. So if you thought that narrowing down a location was hard, wait until you start trying to decide what time of year to go. So I recommend Googling the best time of year to go on a specific vacation. So if you're interested in going to Jamaica, they may say, oh, you should go to Jamaica between, May and September. The times may vary depending on what type of location you're interested in. A good thing to be mindful of is the temperature, like the weather when you're going there. And then also if it is known for hurricanes. So that may kind of determine on what time of year you're planning your trip. So what I do when I plan my trips abroad, and I look for the best time of year to travel for that trip, and then I'll pick either the month before or the month after. So for example, if I'm planning a trip to Jamaica, for example, and it says that the best time to travel to Jamaica is from May to September, then I'll either go on vacation to Jamaica in April or October. So I always travel during off season, and that's how I'll get the best deals. And also too, like when you travel during off season, it's gonna be a lot less people at that destination, and I think that it really gives me a good feel for just being there with the locals and not being real touristy. Like, I cannot stand real touristy vacations, so I like to travel when other people are not particularly going to those destinations. And what I've also found out when picking my travel in that way is that the tickets tend to be a lot cheaper, the hotels tend to be a lot cheaper as well. So I recommend that that's how you pick your travel as well. So once you've picked your destination and you've picked a roundabout time of when you would like to go to this said destination, the next piece is to figure out how long you would like to go on your trip for. And so when I'm booking a trip, I always look at either Skyscanner or I'll look at Google Flights. That is my all-time favorite website to use when I'm booking a flight, is to be able to see around what days have the cheapest flights. So you don't want to book a trip and then you find out, dang, if only I would have went one day later, shift my trip to the right, I could have saved $300. Like, that is a horrible feeling. So in order to avoid feelings like that, when you found out your destination and you have a roundabout time of when you would like to go, if your dates are not set in stone, like if you have more flexibility, then I recommend looking at Google Flights and looking at Skyscanner, because that will save you so much money, y'all. So when I look at Google Flights, what I do is I'll pull up the Google Flights and I'll put in my hometown or wherever I'm leaving from, and then I'll type in the destination of where I plan on going. And then what you can do is you can pull up a month view, and it will show you, hey, if you leave on this Wednesday and you come back on this Sunday, then the ticket will be this amount of money. Or if you leave on Thursday and come back on Monday, your ticket will be this amount of money. So that will kind of help you narrow down specific dates of when you would like to take your trip if your dates are more flexible. Now, if you're going for a specific event and you need to be there on specific days, then it'll be a little bit more difficult, but if it's real flexible, then I recommend you go this route so that you can save the most amount of money. So I also want to throw in this little pro tip that if you have not selected your destination yet, you can always use Skyscanner as a way to select a cheap destination from your hometown and where you would like to go. So pretty much what you do is you go to Skyscanner and you can select trip everywhere, and then it will pretty much pull up the cheapest tickets to fly to the cheapest destination. So I recommend this type of trip for my very open-minded, my very free friends who just kind of just like to go with the wind. So I haven't personally booked a trip that was selected as anywhere, but I definitely will be open for it in the future. I also want to give you guys another pro tip and let you guys know that you should be looking for all of your flights and researching all of your travel accommodations and destinations in private browsing. So a lot of the times we get onto these websites and boxes will pop up where it says, hey, just to let you know, we're tracking your cookies, or we're collecting information so that we can better your user experience, like all that type of stuff. So whenever you're looking for a trip, you want to make sure that you're doing it in private browsing, because once, I guess, like the powers that be know that you're looking for a specific trip, you'll find out that the tickets are going to keep getting more and more expensive because they know that you're looking for that trip. So what I like to do is I always like to browse for a trip in those initial stages in private browsing, so that I'm not impacted later on when I'm ready to buy my trip because they know that I really want to go on that trip. So now that you have your destination and you pretty much have a roundabout time of when you would like to go, I recommend that you plug those dates and that destination into Expedia. But remember to do it on private browsing so that it doesn't bite you in the butt later. So go on to Expedia.com and then you can put in your destination, where you're leaving from, and it will give you a ton of options of flights. And so you'll also be able to see what the prices are for those accommodations in that area as well. So that will kind of start helping you round out your budget, so you can see, hey, if I want to go on this trip around this time and stay typically in this area, it's going to cost me about this amount of money. So I always like to do that in the pre-planning stages or in the really beginning stages of a trip, so that I can get a roundabout cost of how much I should be saving for. Also, what I really like about Expedia is that it gives you pretty much a ton of flight options that you can pick from. So once you get those flight options from Expedia, you go on to Google Flights, and then Google Flights will actually let you save specific flights that you're interested in, and then you'll automatically get an email update when those flight prices go down. It will track it for you. It will also give you like a little key indicator at the bottom of Google Flights that will let you know, hey, this price is really low, this is average typical price for your flight during this time of year, or hey, this is really expensive. And so if it's really expensive, it might be because it's close to the time that you've plugged in that you're about to leave. So I recommend that you do this research 6 to 8 months in advance. Like, you want to do this as far out as possible from the time that you're planning on going. So I typically like to plan out my trips the October before, which sounds so crazy, but I'm a really organized person, you guys, and I just know like well far in advance that like I don't want to spend a lot of money. Like, I want to make sure that I'm getting the best deal, I'm getting the best prices, I'm getting the best flights. So I pretty much will plan all of my vacation, all of my trips the year before. So then that gives me plenty of time to save up for it, and then I already know, hey, I'm tracking these flights, so then when a price goes down $100, $200, $300 maybe, then I know, oh, that is a good deal. So the longer that you track it, the more that you'll be able to determine if that's a good price for that ticket or not. Okay, you guys, so if you have used Expedia to get a roundabout estimate of how much your flight and your accommodations are going to cost, you cannot forget to factor in how much it's going to cost you to eat and do activities while you're there. So in order to get this cost, you can go to budgetyourtrip.com. I recommend that you use this for a very rough estimate, because I find that the estimates that this website gives you is very expensive, but it will kind of give you a worst case scenario, very rough estimate of how much it's going to cost for you to eat and do activities. So let me just give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. So I went to budgetyourtrip.com and I put in Austin, Texas, because I'm from the US and I pretty much know like, hey, this is how much stuff on average costs in the US. And so I plugged in Austin, Texas, right? And so when I plugged in Austin, Texas, it gave me a rough estimate of $114 a day in order to eat and do activities in Austin, Texas. And so I felt like that was like really expensive. So you can just use this website as like a really rough estimate to try to get a cost of how much it's going to cost you on a daily basis to, you know, sustain yourself, to eat and do activities in the country that you pick. So you can pick anywhere in the world. I just did Austin, Texas, just so that I can get an idea of, hey, is this website accurate? Like, do I consider it to be accurate? Do I consider it to be overpriced? And so I think that it gives you like the worst case scenario, but really you are in charge of your budget, because you can really control, you know, how much you eat, what activities you do. Do you like to do free stuff? Do you like to do, you know, really expensive stuff? Do you like fine dining, or are you okay with like eating street food? So really you are in charge of your budget. So this just will give you a really rough estimate of how much you can expect to spend on a daily basis while you're there. So the next step that you need to do when planning your trip abroad is you need to find out what are the travel requirements in that country, especially since COVID. Like, there's so many travel restrictions, so many, oh, you can't come here type of thing. We're only allowing, you know, our residents, our citizens. So you really need to check those travel requirements before you go. So even besides the COVID restrictions, you need to find out what are the travel requirements in order to enter the country. Do they just accept a US passport? Do they accept a passport from your country? Are there certain visa requirements? Are there certain health screenings? You have to have particular shots in order to enter the country. So you need to find out this information before you even book your ticket, because if some of those travel requirements are too extenuous, or they're not letting people in due to COVID, then you really need to know that before you book your trip. Okay, now that you selected your destination, you know what time of year you're going, and you kind of know about how much it's going to cost, it's time for you to budget. So like I said, I like to plan my trips the year before, so I know, like, I can calculate, hey, this is how much I need to be saving on a bi-weekly basis in order to go on this trip. So me personally, I know that I love traveling, and it's pretty high on my list. It's like something that I feel like I want to make sure that I experience in my life, and I experience often. So I'm really good at budgeting and saving. So I don't be doing nothing extra, y'all. Like, I don't do nothing extra. I try to be like a minimalist in my everyday life so that I can have money to travel and do those things. So if you would like some tips on how you can budget in order to save for that, you know, special trip that you're interested in, then leave me a comment below, and I might make a separate video on how I'm able to budget so that I can afford to go on the trips that I'm interested in going. Okay, you guys, so now we're at the portion of the planning stage where you plan what type of activities you would like to do while you're on this trip. And I want to make a special note that we are planning our activities before we physically book our flight and our accommodations. And so the reason that I always plan the activities before I do that is I like to look to see where those activities are placed, like in the city that I'm going to be in. Because you don't want to stay, like, let's say you're staying on the south side of town, and then all of the activities that you want to do on the north side of town. And so you're going to spend a lot of time and money commuting from the south side just to go to the north side where all the activities are that you want to do. So I recommend that you look at your activity list before you book your flight and your accommodations. So a good way to see what type of activities are popular in the city that you're going to is I recommend just going to Google. I do a lot of my research on Google, YouTube, and Instagram, to be honest. So I'll go to Google and I'll type in best activities to do in Italy. So I'm actually thinking about planning a trip for Italy next year, so I just thought it would just be a good idea to kind of show you guys how I'm doing the research for that. So I know that I specifically want to go to Rome, so I'll type in best activities to do while in Rome. So you can kind of select things, read descriptions, and really find out, hey, is that something that I want to do and what's near there. So I love to type in also when I'm traveling, what is the best restaurant to eat at while in Rome, or what are the best nightclubs. Like, I like checking out the nightlife when I go to cities too. These are the type of things that I like to do, and this is what people are recommending that I do while I'm there in that country. And so once you get a list of everything that you want to do in that particular location, plug it into Google Maps. And then you'll see it on Google Maps, and you can kind of see, are all of these things clustered in this particular area? Are they clustered over here? And that will kind of help you shape what area you want to book your accommodations in. So you have to make sure that you do this step before you book your accommodations and before you book your flight, so that you're not spending a lot of time traveling from the south side all the way up to the particular area that you're actually going to spend the majority of your time in. So also too, you need to see, hey, do I want to spend less time traveling and less money traveling, or do I want to stay in a cheaper accommodation? So you kind of have to weigh those things out and see what is more important to you. Do you want to be where everything is happening, or do you want to save more money on accommodations? But keep in mind, even if you're saving more money on those accommodations, you may be spending more money traveling back and forth to do the things that you want to do. Okay, you guys, so now we're finally at the part to where you can book your flight and accommodations. So if you followed my list all the way up until this point, then you have already put in a tracker on your flight. And so once you get to this point, if you have enough money to book your flight and accommodations, go ahead and do so whenever the flight drops to a particular price. So if you've been tracking your flight for 6 to 7 months, then you may see, hey, this is a good price. I just got this email, so I'm gonna go ahead and book my flight. So the website that I like to use to book my flight is I either book them directly, either through Google, which will automatically send you to the link for the actual airline that you're booking the flight through, or I like to book through Expedia. Those are pretty much my only two options that I book flights with. They're either directly through the flight or they're through Expedia. So what I like about Expedia is a lot of the times that I've seen that I can get a flight and it's actually cheaper when I bundle it with my accommodations. So since we did all of that research ahead of time, I know pretty much what area I want to stay in, and I have a good feel for which flight that I want. So I always check it both ways though. So I either check to see, hey, this is how much the flight costs if I book it directly through the airline, versus this is how much the flight costs if I book it through Expedia. And I always make sure that I'm getting the better deal. So it doesn't hurt to crunch the numbers, even though I found that when I book through Expedia, when you book along with an accommodation, it actually turns out to be cheaper than if you booked the flight and accommodation separately. So another cool thing about booking your trip through Expedia is that it gives you your itinerary all in one place. So you don't have to piecemeal, the confirmation from this particular hotel, or have to get my airline from a different place. If you book through Expedia, your flight, your hotel, any activities that you book through Expedia, it's all gonna be in one place. So that could be an extra benefit to you, or you can always make sure that you keep those things separate in a Word document if that works better for you too. Another thing that I like about booking through Expedia, and this is not sponsored by Expedia, although if y'all looking at sponsoring your girl, you definitely can, because I have booked a lot of trips through Expedia actually. So another thing that I really like about Expedia is that when you're booking your accommodations, you can select a specific area that you want to stay in. Alright guys, so we've pretty much planned out our destination, we planned out our activities, we know where we're staying at, and now the last thing to pretty much do is pack for your trip. So I recommend that you make a list. Don't just go out and just be putting stuff in a suitcase. Make a list, because that will ensure that you're not going to leave something very important. Another thing that I do is I pack light. It reminded me of that Queen Naja song. If you're going on a vacation for like 4 or 5 days, or even up to 7 days, you don't need to be packing like you packing for everybody and their mama, okay? Like, keep it on with a carry-on suitcase. You don't need to check a bag. It's definitely gonna cut down on your travel expenses because you're not gonna pay for the bag there and back. And it gives you less opportunity to mess something up. Because the last thing that you want is to put all of this stuff in a checked bag, and then you get to your destination and they can't find it. Or your bag is delayed, or this happened, or that happened, and somebody stole something. Nope. I just cut all of that out, and I just bring everything with a carry-on bag. Like some of my biggest vacations that I went to, like I went to Amsterdam, I've been to Lisbon, Canada multiple times. All of those places, I have gone with a carry-on bag. Like I don't check bags. The only time I check a bag is when I'm going to Cincinnati and I plan on being there for 2 to 3 weeks. So if you're planning a vacation, I would say for less than 10 days, you do not need a check bag. Save yourself the money, save yourself the coins, save yourself the stress of trying to keep up with this bag. Can you imagine being in another country, you have no idea where you're going, and you're lugging around this extra big, I would say, this bag? Like, no. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple, and just carry a carry-on bag. It will just save you so much stress. I promise I'm not steering you wrong. Okay, you guys, so that is pretty much all of the information that I have for you on how to plan a seamless, smooth trip abroad. So this video is really geared towards people who have not traveled abroad before, and it's a very beginner friendly guide. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you are interested in planning a trip, please make sure to leave me a comment down below so that I can know where you're going. Because if I've gone to one of your places, I can probably recommend some activities that you do there, some of my favorite hotels at some of those places. Or you can check out some of my vlogs on the channel that I have, because I like to vlog places that I go. Alright guys, so if you've made it this far, please make sure to hit the subscribe button so that we can be friends and that you can be updated when I make future videos. I love you guys so much, and please make sure to keep your actions intentional, your thoughts positive, and remember that hurt people, but today it stops with us. We ain't bringing none of that negative energy, and we ain't passing on to nobody else. Alright, love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.